Scarlet, written by Natalia and Rochelle Melville. Scarlet slammed the door of her tired Mazda 121. She hadn't meant to slam the door, but her annoyance was just simmering under the surface and had simply leapt out. As she turned her key in the ignition, she patted the steering wheel apologetically. Buckling her seatbelt quickly and glancing into the back seat, Scarlet mentally checked off the day's provisions and tasks. Textbooks? Check. Cherise jacket? Check. Cookie tin? Check. Magazines? Check. Reversing the car swiftly out of the driveway, Scarlet beeped the horn twice to acknowledge her mother's wave and pulled the car onto the tree-lined street toward Mim's house. Scarlet knew Mim was expecting her visit. She also knew that although Mim had the flu, she would be primping her silver curls right about now, putting fresh water in the little black kettle on the fire, harvesting a bouquet of peppermint leaves from the terracotta pot in the veranda, and finally snuggling back under her patchwork quilt near the fireplace in the lounge room. The view on the drive to Mim's was spectacular. Usually, Scarlet's soul feasted on the purple-hued mountain range, teal lake and white trees that stood like pale sentinels against the vibrant backdrop. Today, however, Scarlet didn't see the view. She impatiently turned up the radio till the little car was thumping. Mim would want to talk about school, Scarlet's new job at Serapis, and how everyone was back home. "I really don't have time for this," she huffed aloud in frustration, thinking of the history assignment that was due tomorrow. "I could just visit Mim tomorrow night," Scarlet argued with herself. She knew if she turned around now and used Macca's Wi-Fi back at Blarney Point, she would easily get her essay done in time. "If I visit Mim, I'll only have to pull an all-nighter." Scarlet groaned, but then instantly felt guilty. The guilt fled as the picture of the patchwork magazines in the boot for Mim entered Scarlet's mind. She envisioned the way Mim's wrinkled face would light up when she was presented with those treasures. She smiled at the thought of the pepperminty hug that Mim would envelope her in when she greeted her eldest grandchild. Scarlet put her foot down on the accelerator and continued toward Mim's cottage. Scarlet's phone vibrated, and seeing the caller ID, she pulled over on the side of the winding mountain road. Her heart pounded, and a silly grin crept into her face. She took a quick, deep breath, checked how her hair looked in the mirror before giddily pressing the green button to accept the call.
"Hey, mon chéri, my chéri."
"Nice French accent, Brock." She giggled and blushed into her phone. He paused, his voice smooth.
"Ich mag Käse."
Scarlet giggled. "I like cheese. Really?"
"Nope."
They both laughed.
"Actually, babe, I was hoping you could do something for me."
"Of course." Scarlet jumped in. She winced inwardly, knowing that sounded a bit eager. She'd forgotten to be cool. She was imagining Brock running his fingers confidently through his thick, wavy hair as he spoke, his dark eyes smouldering and his cute dimples pulling his chin just off to the left a little.
"Great. I need you to pick up something from a friend."
Scarlet's shoulders sagged, but she diligently wrote down the address he gave her and tried to keep her voice peppy. Brock had really taken her under his wing when she was the newbie at school only 3 short months ago. He was popular, friendly, and absolutely charming. He attracted people like a spinning vortex. And though Scarlet prided herself on having her head screwed on right, the butterflies in her stomach reminded her she wasn't immune to Brock's charm. Hanging up the phone, Scarlet turned the key in the ignition and accelerated sharply, turning back towards town and away from Mim's. The crochet magazines and homemade macadamia, chia, and chocolate cookies sat forgotten in the back seat.
Welcome back, girls. It's Esther here.
And it's Steph. Happy 1-month anniversary.
Yes, we've been doing this for 4 weeks and we just want to thank you because we wouldn't be able to do this without your support. And we're just really grateful.
We love spending time with you girls and we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
And if you ever want to write us an email, which we'd love to receive, you need to follow the links below and send us anything, any thoughts, any questions, just anything that's inspiring you. Just let us know. And we, if you give us permission, we can read these on our podcast.
Well, as you know, we've been studying the armour of God and how we can apply it to us now.
We really hope that you've understood it, and we have learned a lot in this journey.
So let's recap what we've learnt, and we're going to get straight into it.
So the first one we did was the belt of truth. So just to recap what that was is, number 1, believe that Jesus is God. And number 2, believe who you are in God, his beloved girl. So this is protecting our minds from the lies that Satan puts in our brains, in our minds about our worth, about who we are.
The second one we went through was the breastplate of righteousness. And this one was basically about following God's commandments, putting that breastplate on over our heart so we can make the right choices. And when we don't, we have to face the consequences of our choices.
The third one we did was the shoes of peace and readiness. So this one was about us having a strong stand. So having those shoes that grip onto, our surface, that we don't stumble and fall.
The fourth one we learnt about was the shield of faith. And this one was about building that relationship with God so we have that faith in him when those problems come, we can trust him.
Then number 5, we talked about the helmet of salvation. This one was about not being deceived, not following what people are doing, and having our minds protected at all times.
And last, but definitely not least, number 6 was the sword of the Spirit. And this is God's word. It's actually getting right into the Bible, finding those promises, and using them in our fight against the evil one. And that has been it. The armour of God. All 6 pieces.
Yeah, and they're really good. If you want to go deeper again, just go back to the previous episodes, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And you can, do all the activities again. Go to our blog so that you can read it.
Or listen in case you don't like reading.
That's right.
But we really hope that you can use this and apply it to your everyday life. It will be a challenge, but, we will be praying for you and God can help you through it.
That's right. And at the beginning, you heard a story about a girl. And today we're going to finish with her. And you're going to see if she used any or none of the armor of God. So that's your call to see what she did.
All right, girls, until next month, we have some brand new topics to cover.
Yes, really exciting. So stay tuned next Friday.
See you later.
Bye.
Scarlet cautiously stopped the car in front of a saggy 2-story house. Random pieces of machinery were scattered along the grass. Her stomach dropped as she rechecked the address. No way. Nuh-uh. I am not going there. Her hand automatically reached for her phone. Suddenly, an overweight, balding man appeared around the side of the house. His forehead was covered in bright, pink, puffy pimples. Are you red? Yeah? Said Scarlet, startled. The short man grunted distrustingly. His eyes squinted at her. Well, tell Wolverine not to be so late with his next payment. He thrust a small package toward the car window. The package was covered in greasy butcher's paper and smelt of rancid cooking oil. So, Wolverine? Scarlet attempted to use humor to push aside the ominous feeling in her gut. Brock laughed and winked slyly at her as he eagerly took the package from Scarlet and leaned in for a kiss. She sidestepped his lips and he laughed mockingly.
Thanks, babe.
The words lacked sincerity as he tore open the package. Inside the butcher's paper lay tiny packets of white powder. Scarlet noticed his hands were shaking and she caught a whiff of tobacco on his breath. Her mind whirled. She didn't know he smoked.
Where's the rest of it?
Demanded Brock. Huh? Scarlet was confused. She'd been edging toward the door, but now Brock strode towards her and stood in the path of freedom.
Where's the other package?
Brock demanded. There was only one package. That's all of it. That's all he gave me.
Liar!
Brock's words were hissed out through clenched teeth, and he raised his hand menacingly. Scarlet suddenly knew for certain that she was in trouble. She twisted out of the way and strode towards the door, feigning confidence. "Well, Mum's waiting for me in the car. I've got to go." The light tumbled out as she fumbled in the Cherise jacket pocket for her phone and her car key. Brock turned on the charm. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he cooed.
Okay, I believe you. Don't go, mon chéri. Let's have a party. A party just for two.
Brock's words were silvery as he draped his muscly arm around Scarlet's neck and attempted to walk her and the little white packets towards the kitchen. Again, he tried to draw her face towards his. Scarlet's stomach convulsed at the thought of kissing him now. How many nights had she lain awake dreaming of this moment? "I said no, Brock, I'm leaving!" Her words bordered on a shout. She struggled to extricate herself from his arms, but Brock had a determined glint in his eyes. And then, another gangly figure materialized in the doorway.
Leave her alone, man. Push off, Axel.
Brock growled, his face pressed up close to Scarlet's teary cheek.
Let her go. She said no.
Axel's voice rang out confidently in the shadowy corridor. Scarlet dug her elbow into Brock's ribcage and he finally released her with a wince. She scrambled towards the door, her heart still racing, but kept an eye on Brock as he staggered off to the kitchen, muttering under his breath. He glared at her.
Here.
Axel said as he swung the door open for her.
Don't worry.
He laughed, seeing her strained face.
I'll take care of him.
He pushed his messy blonde hair out of his eyes, gesturing to Brock's disappearing profile.
He needs a bucket of water thrown over him,
he joked. A strangled laugh squeezed from Scarlet's throat. She wished she was at Mim's, listening to her chatter about her childhood. Instead, she had thrown it away, gallivanting around the countryside after some boy she hardly knew. She felt numb, only just managing to nod when Axel asked if she was okay to drive. The sun was rapidly disappearing into the purple hills when Scarlet finally parked her car in front of Mim's little house. Her nostrils were instantly hit by the aroma of fresh bread and rose bushes. Scarlet grabbed the magazines and the cookie tin from her car. She pushed aside her thoughts about a boy called Axel and her last-minute history assignment and inhaled the wonderful calm smell of freshly brewed peppermint tea. "Mim?" Scarlet knocked softly on the door. "It's Scarlet. Can I come in? Sorry I'm late." "Knock and the door shall be open unto you," Mim laughed gently, throwing open the door, her face crinkling as she smiled fondly at her granddaughter. "My, what a big heart you have," murmured Scarlet, removing her Cherise hoodie and leaning into Mim's embrace. "All the better to love you with, my dear," whispered the little silvery-haired lady with a smile that could light up the darkest night.
Sexual immorality, impurity, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, jealousy. Are you living by the acts of the flesh?
Or will you live by the fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Coming next month,